Good evening and welcome to our weekly news programme. In the news this week, COVID cases in WykeRegis and the Underhill and Grove areas of Portland are still rising. And in WykeRegis, we're now at a rate above the national average. The figures from Public Health England released this week show a rise of 9.1% in cases in WykeRegis and 54.5% in the Underhill and Grove areas of Portland. This is against a background that most areas of Weymouth and Portland and the wider Dorset are on a falling rate with low increases or either falling, except of course for Bournemouth and Poole, who have some major challenges, although I have to say even some of those areas now are actually starting to stabilise and on a downward trend. So we still need to be careful, not only when we go out, but in our own homes, and make sure that we're washing our hands and keeping distance where necessary, wearing those face coverings, washing our hands, especially when we've handled things. In fact, a number of stories this week, I mean, not from an evidence point of view, but from passing comments of people that I'm familiar with who have got coronavirus, have been from handling things in supermarkets. That's the only thing that they can think that they have done and the only contact they've had. So I'm not saying that that is a problem, but I would certainly suggest if you're going to an area like a supermarket where you're handling things that others may have touched, that you're extra careful with your hand washing and hand hygiene. And most importantly of all, remember that once you've got the vaccination, you are not 100% safe. The vaccination isn't 100% itself, but also you can still carry and pass on the virus to other people. So please don't let your guard down, and please think of the whole community in the weeks ahead. And hopefully, as the vaccinations are wider spread and we can keep our lockdown going for a few more weeks, then hopefully things will continue on a downward trend and will relieve the pressure on our public services and the NHS. In response to the coronavirus situation, Public Health Dorset, on behalf of Dorset Council, is setting up a new Dorset Community Rapid Testing Service. And this is for local businesses. So if you're a local business or you're a local charity or voluntary organisation employing less than 250 people, or you're self-employed and you cannot work from home due to the nature of your role, then this service is going to be for you, to mean that you can get tested once a week for a period of 6 weeks to check that you are not an asymptomatic carrier of the virus. That's so somebody who's carrying the virus without knowing you've got any symptoms. So if you're out there working within the community, you're out offering services that people still need to do, something like a plumber, etc., in the community, then this rapid testing system is for you. It's about protecting the vulnerable, so those working with vulnerable people, housing support, mortuary and funeral staff, essential tradespeople, plumbers, transport, etc., and sheltered housing, and essential services, people like food production, retail, delivery drivers, preschool staff, community volunteer groups, engineering and energy. So if you fit into any of those groups, you can register. Registration opens from Monday the 1st of February. You can search for it on the Dorset Council website. If not, if anybody can't find the registration, please drop me an email and I'll be happy to pass it on to you. Time is running out for those who need help with their utility bills. Like gas, electricity and water, there's a closing date for applications of the 12th of February. Funding is available for families, vulnerable families across the county from the government's COVID Winter Grant Scheme. This is part of the Reaching Out campaign to support people struggling financially because of the impact of coronavirus. The support is available mainly to vulnerable families, and Dorset Council is asking them and other people who need help to apply for support either online on the Dorset Council website, or if you'd rather do it over the telephone because you struggle with the internet, then you can call Dorset Council on 01929 408 950. That's 01929 408 950. The programme is actually administered by the Citizens Advice Dorset on behalf of Dorset Council. Councillor Jane Somper, Dorset Council lead member for safeguarding, said, "I urge families and others who need support this winter with essential bills like heating to apply for this help or get in touch by ringing the helpline or applying online. These are difficult times, and helping our most vulnerable families who have been hard hit by the pandemic is vital. We are working with our schools and other organisations like Citizens Advice to get help and support out to those people who need it." So if that's you, 01929 408 950 or via the Dorset Council website. Now on to education. Good news for local education. We've heard this week that Weymouth College has been given a share of £1.5 million from the Local Enterprise Partnership. Weymouth College themselves get £250,000, and it's going to be used to improve its mechanic and engineering programmes and to provide a state-of-the-art centre of excellence for construction, including some building refurbishment. Some of the things that the college are spending their money on is they're updating their range of 3 electric vehicles, 3 electric cars, and their fleet of hybrid cars to enable the students on the mechanics and engineering courses to actually familiarise themselves with the modern technology, not just traditional vehicles. So that's good news for Weymouth College. It looks like snow won't be appearing this weekend in Dorset, despite many parts of the country bracing themselves once again for wintry conditions. And whilst parts of Dorset had snow last weekend, we missed it down here on the coastal areas. While cold conditions are forecast, it will be a very wet weekend across the county with temperatures between 5 and 7 degrees. Local weather forecasts are predicting that next week could see temperatures dropping. That's from next weekend. And possibly to levels we haven't seen since the winter of 2018. So that will be interesting. The Met Office has issued a series of weather alerts for snow and ice for the next week, but not currently including Dorset. But as we will learn later in tonight's programme, that predicting snowfall is a bit of an art and it's quite unpredictable. So quite a difficult thing to do. Last Sunday, residents in coastal areas of Dorset missed out on snow, while people living in the east and north of the county, including Shaftesbury, Cranbourne, Blandford, and even as close as some of the areas of Dorchester, enjoyed wintry scenes. More on the weather later in the programme. Now, moving on to other things. Could you be a local lifesaver? The RNLI lifeboat station in Weymouth is seeking a new recruit. The RNLI team in Weymouth is calling for a new volunteer to take up the role of volunteer water safety officer. So what does a volunteer water safety officer do, I hear you say? Well, it's a key role which would involve the volunteer in the design, implementation of the community life-saving plan, liaising closely with the local lifeboat operations team, area life-saving manager and the water safety team. Volunteering with the RNLI gives the opportunity to make a real difference in the local community, to save lives and become part of the larger RNLI family. So they're looking for somebody who is enthusiastic, who can be effective both within a team and on a standalone basis. The RNLI will provide all the training and all the equipment required for the role. If you are interested or you just would like to find out more, do give them a call on 01305 785 817. That's 01305 785 817. So that's our lifeboat service, a vital service for those that go out on the water. They're talking about another vital service now, the local Coast Guard. A woman fell 6 foot on the cliff between Seaton and WykeRegis and broke her leg yesterday afternoon, and she was airlifted by safety by the Coast Guard helicopter, which came all the way from St Athan in Cardiff. You'll remember, until a few years ago, of course, a Coast Guard helicopter was situated at Portland. Now they have to come from farther afield. The incident happened on the Culver Hole area between Seaton and WykeRegis yesterday afternoon, and this was just a day after another difficult rescue in the Seaton area the day before. WykeRegis and Beer Coast Guard rescue teams were again involved in yesterday's incident. Due to the difficult location on the coast, a helicopter was brought in and it airlifted the lady to a safe area where she could then join a parked up ambulance. A spokesman for the Coast Guard said the female had fallen 6 feet from the cliff and had broken her leg. It was a 35-minute walk along the beach to get to her. So obviously the Coast Guard are very important, and the Coast Guard helicopter, in reaching these people in hard to reach areas. So that's good news, and we're obviously very thankful to our Coast Guards as well as our RNLI throughout the year living on a coastal area. Uh, Going back a bit towards the coronavirus situation, or on the periphery of the coronavirus situation, a report this week has revealed that more than 2,000 patients have been waiting over a year for routine treatment at Dorchester Hospital. The Royal College of Surgeons of England has done a survey, and actually most of the hospitals across the country are in a similar position. So I wouldn't want you to think that Dorchester's in a particularly unique position, or actually any worse than any others. The Royal College of Surgeons of England says a huge hidden waiting list is building up across the nation under lockdown. NHS rules state that patients referred for non-urgent consultant-led elective care should get treatment within 18 weeks. That's the target. But NHS statistics show that 2,169 patients listed for elective operations for treatment at Dorset County Hospital at the end of November have been waiting at least 52 weeks, a record high. Dorset County Hospital's Chief Nursing Officer, Nikki Lucy, said the coronavirus response has led us a significant impact on the services we can provide our patients, but we have been working extremely hard to restart activities that were paused during the pandemic. Our teams have worked incredibly hard to maintain urgent procedures and to run as many appointments as possible during the pandemic through telephone and video consultations. Inevitably, we are now facing some long waiting times for routine surgery within a number of specialities, and work is underway to address the backlog. We understand the impact of longer waits have on our patients, and we apologise for the inconvenience of any delay. The safety of patients is our top priority, and we will prioritise the most clinically urgent patients. We have rigorous infection control measures in place to protect our patients and our staff. As a result of these measures, some planned treatments are taking longer to perform than they did before. And I can personally vouch for that, having had to visit Dorchester Hospital myself several times during lockdown. I've felt incredibly safe every time I've gone in there, and I know the things that I've been in for consultations and for diagnostics have taken considerably longer because of the cleaning routines before and after I've visited. Obviously, when we hear our hospitals are full with people gravely ill with COVID-19 and patients are being transported to the temporary Nightingale hospitals, it's inevitable that some of the more routine services will suffer as the COVID patients, who are some of them very, very ill, have to be dealt with and looked after first, and as the hospitals in general grapple with dealing with the pandemic. We all hope, for the sake of our NHS services, our NHS staff and patients, that soon the number of patients in hospital will decline and allow a recovery programme to be followed to deal with the backlog and to take some of the pressure off the NHS and their staff. So, moving on to some of our more longer items tonight. In the headlines, we mentioned, whilst others would be getting snow this weekend and did last weekend, that we would miss out yet again. For those of us down on the south coast, we rarely get snow. Whilst it can get as close as a few miles away inland, also often the forecasts are that we will get snow, and they're not always accurate, and we don't get it. I'm not an expert in snow and whether we will get it or not, or even in weather forecasting, but I do know that it's down to the air movement, the air temperature, and the level of moisture in the air. Something which for us on the coast can be quite different than it is a few miles inland. And in particular for us in the Portland, WykeRegis and Weymouth area, we often see different weather in the Bay of Weymouth and around Portland than you do over the Ridgeway towards Dorchester. I thought it would be worth asking the team at the Met Office why, therefore, snow is so tricky to forecast.
Most meteorologists have a love-hate relationship with snow. We love it for the same reasons most people love it. It's a beautiful thing, it changes landscapes, it's fun, it's reasonably rare, and it challenges us.
But we hate it because it's so tricky to forecast accurately, and so many people are interested in it. Well, that puts the pressure on.
But why is snow so difficult to forecast? Well, it's because of a number of factors that all have to come together. And because of the geography of the UK, these factors are often on a knife edge. First of all, though, here's Alex talking about the critical part temperature plays in producing the white stuff.
Obviously, temperature is a big factor. Now, 1 degree of difference doesn't make hardly any difference on a fine summer's day or a dank day in autumn. But in winter, it can be the difference between a soggy scene or a wondrous whiteout. And it's not just the temperature around us. The whole temperature profile of the atmosphere from the ground up to the cloud needs to be understood. Most rain starts off as snow melting on the way down, but in winter that raindrop can go through lots of different layers, melting, freezing, melting and refreezing. But it's not just about temperatures.
Next, the intensity of the precipitation is vital. When falling snow melts into rain, it takes heat energy from the air around it. The heavier the precipitation, the more heat it takes and the colder it gets. Sometimes it can get so cold that it stops melting entirely. We also need to consider time of day and year. Claire.
Timing is crucial. A weather front arriving across the UK, say at dawn, the coldest time of the day. During the winter months, we're more likely to see snow than even just a couple of hours later when the air has been given a chance to warm up a little bit. Elevation is also a factor. You're more likely to see snow over the hills and mountains rather than at lower levels. So how high up you are does make a difference. And analysing the temperature profile of the atmosphere gives a good indication of where the snow will fall. In fact, when making calls about impacts of snow, we do need to consider the higher routes and also major roads at elevation. In fact, the National Severe Weather Warning Service is based on impacts. So let's say a centimetre of snow falls across a certain area. If it falls during rush hour, then we're more likely to see greater impacts than, say, 4 a.m. in the morning. There are other things we also need to consider.
One more thing and we're back to temperature, but now the temperature of the ground. That's crucial for how much snow is going to stick around. In late autumn, early winter, the ground is still quite warm. Later in winter, yes, the ground's cooled down, but come February, March time, the sun is getting stronger, so that can melt snow quicker. Now, this does sound like a lot of excuses, but just giving you examples of all the things that meteorologists have to think about when we're forecasting snow. And in this country, a lot of those things are often on a knife edge. It's rare that we get such cold air over such cold ground that everything falling from the sky is snow. But can it ever be too cold to snow?
Well, it can be too dry to snow, and the colder the air is, the drier it is. So really cold air simply doesn't contain as much snow. Now in the UK it doesn't get that cold, and when we do see our lowest temperatures it's normally in the absence of snow under clear skies at night. When we see our heaviest snow it's often the case that mild air is meeting cold air, temperatures are a degree or so either side of freezing, and that explains why it's so difficult to predict snow in the UK.
So there we go. Thank you, Alex, Aidan and Claire from the Met Office for explaining all that to us. So the question remains, will we get any snow this winter or not? Well, we'll be looking at the week ahead's weather towards the end of the programme. Next this evening, we're going to get an update on our intrepid walkers who are travelling virtually from Land's End to John O'Groats by totting up their actual miles walked locally and plotting them on the Land's End to John O'Groats walk. This week they will not only be updating us on their walk, but also a stop off to look at Burns Night, which happened at the beginning of the week on Monday. So how far have our walkers got, and when will they get to John O'Groats? Let's have an update from them now.
Hello everyone, it's time for an update on our virtual walk. Now, you've got to remember this is a virtual walk, and therefore it takes place in a virtual reality which doesn't have lockdown rules attached to it. So we decided to spend a little time in Scotland just relaxing and found a lovely hotel just outside Glasgow. We were there Sunday night and Monday night. And Monday was a very special day in Scotland because it was Burns Night, the day which commemorates the life of Robert Burns, who was born on January the 25th, 1759. He's probably the most famous Scottish poet of them all. And he made a tremendous contribution to Scottish culture. His best known work, of course, being Auld Lang Syne. The most important part of Burns Night is the Burns Night supper. It begins with a bagpiper greeting the guests, who gather around and mix as a sort of informal party. And then the host makes a welcoming speech. He says a few words, perhaps reminding people for the reason for having a Burns Night supper. When all the guests are seated, grace is said, and it usually uses this Selkirk grace.
Some hae meat and canna eat, and some hae nane that want it. But we hae meat, and we can eat, so let the Lord be thanked.
You may be surprised to know that that was sent all the way from America, because I wanted someone with an authentic Scottish accent doing it. Anyway, back to the meal. Next comes the soup course. Normally it's a Scottish soup, such as a broth, potato soup, or cockaliki is served. Everyone stands as the haggis is brought in by the cook on a large dish, generally while a bagpiper leads with a medley of Burns's music. The host, or perhaps a guest, then recites the address to the haggis, which includes the words Great Chieftain or the Puddin' Race. At the end of the poem, a whisky toast will be proposed to the haggis and the company will sit down to the meal. The haggis is traditionally served with mashed potatoes, tatties, and mashed swede turnips, needs. A dessert, of course, cheese courses, coffee, etc. may also be part of the meal, usually made from Scottish recipes. When the meal reaches the coffee stage, various speeches and toasts are given. The main speaker gives a speech remembering some aspects of Burns's life or poetry. A toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns then follows. And then comes the address to the lassies. This was originally a short speech given by a male guest in thanks to the women who had prepared the meal. And the men drink a toast to the women's health. Then the ladies reply with a toast to the laddies. After the speech, there may be singing of songs by Burns and more poetry such as To a Mouse, Tam O'Shanter. And of course, there's Scottish dancing. Finally, the host will call on one of the guests to give the vote of thanks. Then everyone is asked to stand, join hands, and sing Auld Lang Syne to bring the evening to an end. So after all that celebrating, we didn't make too early a start on Tuesday morning, as we began our wonderful walk through the amazing Scottish countryside. Now, let's hear our report from Jeff Rivers. Well, isn't that something? Now we'll have to start thinking about how we get back. We thought we might come back by another route. Maybe take a bit longer this time, see some more sights. See you next week for another update. Bye for now.
Thank you, Janet, and the Intrepid Walkers, and of course Jeff, for updating us on the route. And 978 miles achieved in 3 weeks by a group of local people virtually walking around our locality in Wyke and Weymouth. So yeah, we'll look forward to hearing the journey back starting next week. A few weeks ago, we told you that this weekend is the RSPB Great Garden Birdwatch. I don't know if you've remembered that. Not an ideal day for watching birds in the garden today. It's a bit blowy and a bit wet, but it's not too late to join in. We've got tomorrow as well left to do it. All you need to do is pick 1 hour over the weekend. So whether you're an early bird and gets up first thing, or a night owl and you go to bed late, you can still take part. All you do is count the birds you see in your garden, your courtyard or your balcony, or even a green space that you overlook, so you don't actually need your own garden. So that's good news. Ignore any birds that are still in the air, in flight, and to avoid double counting, just record the highest number of each bird species you see at one time, not a running total. It's the highest number. If you see a group of 3 sparrows, for instance, you write down 3 sparrows. You can submit your results online at rspb.org.uk/birdwatch up until the 19th of February. You can also send in your results by post. Every count is important, so if you don't see anything at all, that's useful information as well, so please submit your report. Finding out which birds don't visit your garden in your area is just as important as understanding which ones do. All the resources you need to take part are on the RSPB website at www.rspb.org.uk. Now we're going to go back over to Chris Packham just to remind us what the Garden Birdwatch is all about.
What will you see when you join us for this year's RSPB Big Garden Birdwatch?
I want to see what the early bird looks like.
And see how many different birds I can spot in an hour.
Many of us are enjoying spending more time with nature now, so why not take part in this year's Big Garden Birdwatch to build a picture of how birds are faring across the UK.
It helps us better understand how things are changing and how to help our wildlife.
Join in between the 29th and the 31st of January.
For your Big Garden Birdwatch guide, just search online for Birdwatch 21.
What will you see in your Big Garden Birdwatch? We'd love to know.
There we go, that's the Garden Birdwatch that the RSPB are doing this weekend, and they're desperate for you to take part and let them know what's happening. And I know lots of people are very interested in the birds in their garden, and it's something you can do as an individual or as a family group or whatever, so it's something everybody can join in with. Now it's time for this week's book review. We've got a report from Angela Pearce this week, who's going to share with us her thoughts on The Salt Path by Raina Wynne.
Hello everybody. I'm going to tell you about this wonderful book by Raina Wynne. It's called The Salt Path. She and her husband found themselves homeless, and a couple of days after that devastating news, they discovered that her husband had an incurable illness, and they were in the depths of despair. So instead of feeling sorry for themselves, what they did was they packed their rucksacks and they set off walking the southwest coast path from Minehead all the way round to Dorset, to Poole. And the book is actually about what happened to them on their way, and it's full of descriptions of the countryside, the people they met, and it's really uplifting. And I'll just quote from what the Times said. The most inspirational book of this year conveys the human capacity for endurance and the regenerative powers of nature. And the Financial Times said it was a remarkable and redemptive journey. Weymouth even gets a mention, and one of the people that they met who came from somewhere else actually quoted twice in the book. He said, "I quite like Weymouth." So if for no other reason to find our lovely Weymouth mentioned in this book, I thoroughly recommend it. I've never read anything so uplifting for quite some time. So hope you all manage to get hold of a copy and enjoy it.
Thank you, Angela. And if you're reading a book that you think other people might be interested in knowing about and may like to consider reading themselves, do drop us a line and do a book review for us. We would be very interested to know what books you're reading and what they're all about. And is it something that we might be interested in too? Well, obviously at the moment there's parts of society, business and charities and the arts that have been affected financially by the pandemic. Most weeks we've had a review of a forthcoming movie, but this week I thought I would look to see how the movie industry has been affected by COVID. It is one of those areas of society that has been hit significantly, and perhaps we don't realise quite how much. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a substantial impact on the movie industry, mirroring its impacts across all of the arts sectors. Across the world and to varying degrees, cinemas and movie theatres have been closed, festivals have been cancelled or postponed, and film releases have been moved to future dates or delayed indefinitely. Due to cinemas and movie theatres closing, the global box office has dropped by billions of dollars and streaming has become more popular, while the stock of film exhibitors has also dropped dramatically. Many blockbusters originally scheduled to be released after March 2020 have been postponed or cancelled around the world, with many new film productions also halted. The Chinese film industry had lost $2 billion by as early as the end of March 2020, having closed all its cinemas during the Lunar New Year period that sustained the industry all across Asia. North America saw its lowest box office weekend since 1998, between the 13th and the 15th of March 2020. In respect to cinemas themselves, Cineworld, the world's second largest cinema chain, closed its cinemas in October 2020 until further notice. So it's not known when or even if they will ever reopen. The 800, the highest grossing film of 2020, earned $468 million worldwide. It was the first time since 2007 that the top grossing film of a given year had earned less than $1 billion. Just looking at Disney alone, its film Mulan cost $200 million to make, and it had potential for massive audience, particularly in China. There is even a Chinese version, with the changed scenes and scripts to fall under Chinese strict censorship policy. Although eventually released on Disney Plus at an extra cost to subscribers, it has been indefinitely delayed in terms of a cinema release. The revenue for this movie was required to invest in other film projects coming up, so there's a significant knock-on effect. Believe it or not, with the closure of cinemas and delayed film launches and shutting down of some 11 theme parks across the globe, Disney has lost 40% of its revenue. Disney shares dropped at the start of the pandemic from $140 each to a low of around $84 at the start of the pandemic, although over the last month they have rallied rapidly and are now at $168. I guess investors are thinking the pandemic will soon be over and there'll be lots of movies released and theme parks will return to normal. Also, there have been delays to other Disney big hitters such as X-Men, Antlers, and Disney has stopped production of 7 movies, including Little Mermaid, Last Duel, and Nightmare Alley. Sony has also pushed back Ghostbusters, Afterlife, Peter Rabbit 2, Jared Leto's Moribus, Tom Holland's Uncharted, and Cinderella. Other film producers such as Warner Brothers are affected in the same way. In the UK, one of the biggest casualties in terms of movies has been the latest release in the James Bond franchise, No Time to Die. With the worldwide taking on Bond movies predominantly being made in cinemas, and the last movies, Skyfall and Spectre, grossing $1 billion and $900 million respectively, the franchise can just not afford to release them in any other way. Originally due to be released on November 2019, then delayed to April 2020, and then delayed further times, it is now finally been delayed until the latest date of the 8th of October 2021. It was the pushing back of Bond's No Time to Die that in October made Cineworld decide to shut indefinitely, and it said that this and other delays to the big budget releases made the business unviable. Just this week, leading filmmakers, including Danny Boyle and Sir Steve McQueen, wrote to the UK government calling for financial support for cinema chains because they said UK cinemas stand on the edge of an abyss. If you're a cinema and big movie fan, and I have to admit, there's nothing better for me than going to the cinema for the latest Bond movie, I will whet your appetite now for what we will have to wait now until October for, the 25th instalment of the Bond franchise, No Time to Die, starring Daniel Craig as James Bond for the last time.
Why would I betray you?
We all have our secrets. We just didn't get to yours yet.
The world is arming faster than we can respond. Where's 007?
I need a favor, brother. You're the only one I trust for this.
The world's moved on, Commander Bond.
You were 00?
2 years. So stay in your lane. You get in my way, I will put a bullet in your knee. The one that works.
I thought you two would get along.
Name?
Bond.
James Bond.
So you're not dead?
Hello, Q. I've missed you.
He's the most valuable asset this country has. If you feel yourself losing control,
I'm not going to lose control.
James, you gave up everything for her. When her secret finds its way out, it'll be the death of him.
What is it?
You don't know what this is.
James Bond. License to kill. History of violence. I could be speaking to my own reflection. Only your skills die with your body. Mine will survive long after I'm gone.
History isn't kind to men who play God.
Well, you notice it still says November on the official trailer. They've not actually updated that. I did try to get an updated version today, but there isn't an updated one. I'm sure you'll agree, even if you're not a Bond fan, that in some of these big movies, and Bond is typical of it, the direction, the cinematography and the stunts are absolutely amazing. And even if you don't want it for the story, just looking at that, I find them absolutely fantastic. And of course the movie industry is very important to the UK, and it's quite silent normally, but we have some big studios doing a lot of the production for a lot of the worldwide releases of major movies. Of course, as well as the big screen, the small screen of TV production has also been affected, leading, of course, earlier in the year to lots and lots of repeats. But the production companies are getting very clever, and programmes like EastEnders, Holby, Casualty, those regular sort of dramatic programmes and series that we watch week in, week out, have had to adapt to new ways of working and new ways of filming and some clever trickery to make it safe for the stars. I think maybe at a future week we'll actually look at some of these techniques that they've actually been using to make sure that we can have new content week in, week out on our TVs. And we have to congratulate them on what they've been doing to achieve this for us. Now let's have a look at the weather, and firstly we're going to have a look at the national weather forecast from the Met Office. This is the weekend weather forecast from the Met Office. On Saturday there will be rain and snow in the south, dry and cold in the north, and it can be windy all over. Rain will linger in the southern and central areas of the UK, bringing snow over the hills. Dry in the north with sunny spells. A cold day across the country with a brisk easterly winds. Rain and snow will ease, leaving a dry night with clear spells, wintry showers in North Scotland. Overnight, a new weather system will approach from the west. A cold and frosty night for many. Icy patches will form in parts of Wales and southern England overnight. It will be dry, cold and sunny for many throughout Sunday. Cloudier in the southwest with rain in the afternoon, feeling cold again but less windy. Next week a weather system moves in from the west. It will move into cold air, giving risk of snow mainly in the north. It will be milder and wet in southern parts of the country. Snow next week, cold at first, turning milder in the south. So, although there is snow planned for next week, I think it's unlikely that we'll be getting snow. The country seems to be split in half, with the top half being cold and possible snowy, and the lower end being milder and wet. Yes, as if we haven't had enough wet stuff. We've got more to come. Just look at that chart on the screen. Wet every day this coming week, but temperatures rising to double figures. So I don't think we'll be seeing any snow, but it's probably going to be getting colder from next week onwards, and it could be those lowest temperatures we've seen for several years. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens from next week. But this week, if you're going out, take a coat and be prepared for those rain showers. Looking at traffic and travel, not too much to report this week. Still the works are undergoing on Custom House Quay and along the quay there, removing the tram lines. That's going to be carrying on for some more weeks yet, and there's been some reports this week that they found some old rail lines deeper down than the ones they're removing, which was quite interesting. There's a story in the local Dorset Echo about that, and on the Dorset Echo website if you want to have a read about that. The roadworks are still underway by Southern Gas Networks in the western area of Weymouth, although there shouldn't be too much disruption there. And the junction with Abbotsbury Road by the Rock Hotel still has temporary lights. And yet again, I forgot this week I had to go down that way for something near the hospital, and I forgot that the traffic lights were there, and I went that way rather than up Westway Road, and I got held up for ages. They don't seem to change very often, those lights, so just try and avoid that area if you can. Also to say that this week, from yesterday in fact through to the 2nd of February, Wessex Water are doing some works on the main road at Osmington, and there's two-way traffic lights there, so if you're travelling that way there's likely to be delays. On the trains, if anybody is using the trains, and I guess it's only for essential travel at the moment, that there is an amended service in the Southampton area over this weekend, and there's a bus replacement night service if you're going on the Westbury Frome Castle Carey line from Monday to Thursday. Nothing much to report on the what's on, other than to say if anybody has got any stuff happening, even if it's through into the summer that you're planning, do let us know. We can give people an early heads up of what we hope will be happening later on in the year, and we can drum up some interest on that. Just drop us an email and let us know, and we'll mention that in future weeks. Obviously, within WykeRegis, the regular church live stream service happens tomorrow morning at 9:30, and you can find that on the Parish of WykeRegis website and YouTube feed. And Tuesday evening there's a live streamed evening service. And of course, don't forget our quiz on these channels tonight at 7:30, which everyone is welcome to attend. As ever, 7:30, free of charge. It's just alternative entertainment as to what is on TV on a Saturday night. And of course, if you don't want to join in on Saturday night and you find on Tuesday night you've got nothing to do, because of it's on Facebook and YouTube, etc., you can go back and join in the quiz on the video recording of it from the social media channels later in the week, if that's what you want to do. Maybe join in as a family if you don't want to do it on Saturday night. So what I will say until next week, if you can, stay safe, stay at home, be careful if you have to go out, wear your mask, wash and gel your hands, and stay safe. And I look forward to seeing you next week at 6 o'clock on this channel.
Look them in the eyes and tell them you're doing all you can to stop the spread of COVID-19. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.